Hey friends, today we're going to dive into something kind of heavy, but really important. We're going to talk about the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina and how people responded emotionally and spiritually over time. We're going to walk through the different disaster phases that people can experience after a disaster. So we have the heroic, the honeymoon, and the disillusionment phase. And then afterwards, we have how they intervened or reconstructed. So we're going to talk a little bit about that too. It wasn't just a theory or something you heard. It was actually really true. The people that experienced the aftermath of these disasters, some people actually lived it out in the mud through prayers and heartbreak and then, healing. And some people are still actually experiencing trauma from the aftermath today. So the first phase is the heroic phase. Right after Katrina hit, people jumped right into action, and we call this the heroic phase. It happens immediately after a disaster, and it is super intense. There's this intoxicating sense of unity. Neighbors helping neighbors, strangers becoming family. But basically for about 12 to 14 days, people are physically and emotionally running on fumes, but still doing whatever it takes to get it done. So some of the needs and challenges that happen during the heroic stage. People are basically denying what's happening to their homes, their families, even themselves. They're so caught up in it that they can't really see the true damage at the time. So they go into survival mode. They use extreme measures to protect what's left. They stockpile food, supplies, gas, basically whatever they can from the community. There's a very little long-term thinking here going on in the heroic phase because they're just trying to make it through every day at this point, minute to minute, hour to hour, just trying to get through. But many helpers at this time had a deep faith in Christ, and so it was really cool to see the Christian people coming to help those in need. So those people got to see the witness of them. But that is what spiritually motivates some people, and that fueled some of their actions. But emotionally, most people are typically in denial in the heroic stage. Honestly, denial can be like a coping mechanism, a way to completely not fall apart, just to hold yourself together, right? So one of the major issues during the heroic phase is self-care. This can be for anyone, even just a volunteer who's helping someone who was experiencing the trauma. But no one sleeps. No one's eating right. They're grabbing things on the go. They're giving everything to others, and no one has much left for themselves. So it's very important that self-care is happening during this heroic phase. Unfortunately, it just doesn't sometimes. The next phase is the honeymoon phase. The honeymoon phase can last from 2 to 6 weeks. This is where folks are riding a wave of gratitude. They feel like, we've made it. Everything's going to be okay. They hear all the good stories that are going around, different rescues. The news is broadcasting everything. Volunteers are showing up. Churches are sending supplies. There's these outside contract groups that come in to just clean up. But there feels like a restoration of hope here. The honeymoon phase is called the honeymoon phase for a reason because there's always a crash point, right? And the crash can happen to anyone. This can happen to the first responders, the faith leaders, the volunteers who've been going nonstop. They hit this wall of emotionally or physically just done. It's just a big wall that just crams down on them, and reality sets in. Their energy tanks are empty. The community that they've been serving is still so broken, and they can see it more now. And they can't keep pouring from an empty cup, and they know this. So this actually leads to the disillusionment phase. This one it's a hard one. This is where people really start feeling hopeless. They feel like there's nothing else. There's nothing they can do. They feel abandoned because the people that were here, they only have so much vacation or so much time to offer. And so those people start pulling away. All those extra helpers, they start pulling away. And so all their outside help begins to leave. And that makes them feel abandoned. They're fearful about their jobs, their houses, money. Like where will they work? Where will they live? How will they rebuild? And then where are they going to get money to provide for their families? And this is really taxing, especially if you have young children or lots of animals, or even just providing for yourself can be very very fearful moment of what are we going to do in this time. Also, people feel helpless and kind of angry. So after you reach a certain point of cleanup, what do we do now? You just almost don't know where to start or where to begin and what your part is in it all. And so then you kind of get angry and bitter. Why did this happen to me? How, and, what did I do to deserve this? But then people slowly start beginning to think that everything that they just did in the heroic phase was done in vain. Even all the things that they had worked up to for the disaster, like their savings account or the house that they built, like all those things feel like they were wasted. They were for nothing. So you have to recognize that these emotions that they're seeing at this time are not just moods. They develop into other things, and these things can be very clinically serious. So anything that's traumatic, like a major disaster, like the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, can lead to things like post-traumatic stress disorder, which is PTSD, depression, anxiety disorders, and some people even turn to maladaptive coping. And this is where they use like alcohol, drug use, gambling, domestic violence. Relationships start to break down. People get angry with each other. They're more snippy. They fight more. But this maladaptive coping strategy is just because they feel helpless and they don't know what to do, so they turn to other things to make them feel better. And it's a very dangerous, slippery slope. So we have to make sure we prevent that and keep people from going down that route during a disaster. But this is where the real support is supposed to come in. So early interventions are key. When we can offer psychological first aid, which is making sure that they are immediately feeling safe, dry, full, that way they can think straight and get a path going, right? But first, psychological first aid is just what it is. It's, can you get these people in their right state of mind after what they just went through? How can you make them feel safe and comfortable and in a good headspace? And then we also have to do mental health assessments during this time. And disaster help personnel should know when to refer people to professionals at this time. So if it's something that's out of your realm, definitely seek other help. Or if you are a counselor or disaster helper and you know more of an area they could go to, you can definitely refer them or help them yourself. Starting Bible studies centered around healing during these times, like even if they're just quick devotionals that the community can do together, is really great for building strength, unity, prayer, giving people a sense of hope. And that's makes great waves when it comes to your spiritual wellness. And then creating some disaster plans. So this is definitely something that may not always happen until you've gone through a disaster yourself, that you think, how can we create plans for the next time, right? Hopefully there's never another next time, but creating spiritual disaster plans are definitely something that helps people stay connected and unified. So the next thing we have to do is to build community partnerships. This can be between churches, shelters, mental health professionals, but basically all working together for the same cause, which is cleanup, mental health, safety, making sure everything is ready to roll again and get back to what as close to normal as what it used to be as we can. But for the helpers, we have to talk about burnout. Burnout prevention, especially because if they crash, the whole system is wobbly and crashes. And so we have to make sure people are taking care of themselves, not getting burnt out, and doing everything in a way that is helpful and beneficial so that you yourself don't get burnt out. This can happen to anyone: the volunteers, the firefighters, the police officers, the counselors, the people themselves who are going through things. They just want to quit and give up. So the burnout phase is really a real thing. So after you go through the heroic stage, the honeymoon stage, and then the disillusionment stage, we have the reconstruction phase, which is intervention. Like how do we fix these things? This is the long haul portion. This is where people start to see true post-traumatic growth. They are learning to rebuild their homes, their families, their churches, neighborhoods. They're finding a new purpose in what they went through, using their experiences to help others. And sometimes this comes with faith-based communities where they can celebrate the things that they saw happen during the time, which is like spiritual growth, salvations. When people watch a group of Christians come in and just love on people that they don't even know, it shows and speaks volume for Jesus's love for us. And so people come to know Jesus during this time as well. So they celebrate those salvations, and then they really celebrate a healing that only God can bring. In a natural disaster like a hurricane, there are so many things that are out of our control. And we just have to remember that God is in control. And so we have to celebrate the fact that there is healing, and some of that healing only comes from God. But during this intervention phase, when people can share what they've learned, so the next community that faces a disaster isn't starting from scratch. So if you are someone who's helped in a disaster rescue type crew where you've done cleanup, you've done mental health or psychological first aids, sharing what you know with other communities, starting programs, starting curriculum, all those different things, they can help communities rebuild without having to start from scratch. So Hurricane Katrina wasn't just a storm. It was a series of emotional, spiritual, and psychological battles that came in these waves for people. But in that time was also found some incredible strength, unity, and resilience. But I'm so thankful that you came and you're listening to this video. I hope it helps you in your next disaster. Hopefully you don't have a disaster. But I have included the following resource in my response. And so it is all from the HCU online course development 2019 of April 24, the needs and challenges of disaster video on YouTube at www.youtube.com/watch_V=RCSHHOBEDXO. Thanks for watching. Hope this helps.